guys. Thank you. Apparently, I'm terrible at fading the music out, but that's okay. Hello, welcome you guys to another Note to File Live. I'm really excited this week. We have Veeva coming on, doing a demo, which I think is just really cool concept, and I really got to give it up to them. I'm going to go ahead and bring Bree up. Bree Burks.
Hey, thank you so much for having us live. This is going to be really fun.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day to you too, and to everybody else.
Yeah, I'm also, again, super stoked. Very unique to be able to get sort of a live look at, a product I've been talking about for a while that, obviously we're a big fan of. Before we get too deep, tell us just a little bit about yourself. I know I will plug that Bree was on the Note to File podcast, episode 51. So if you really want to know more about Bree and her background, go check that out. But if you would, tell us just a little bit about yourself before we'll get rolling here.
Sure. Well, I feel like I will forever identify with being a research site. I'm a nurse by background and worked across different academic medical centers. And then I think out of just years of frustration, found myself getting involved in technology, and then somehow made my way to Veeva, where I lead strategy right now for our site technology.
Well, very cool. So I guess before we even dive in, what is SiteVault? Obviously, I know what it is, but if you would, share for the audience, how would you define SiteVault?
Yeah, SiteVault is an e-regulatory system for sites. And I think most sites know what that is, but it's a way to fully go digital with all of your regulatory documents. And we've also extended it because we have lots of access to sponsors and CROs that are also customers, where it provides a great way to work better with your sponsors and your CROs that are also using Veeva. So you're going to see a little bit of that today.
Yeah, and frankly, that's something I didn't know. I still say this, but I didn't realize for a long time the sort of presence that Veeva has on the back end, so to speak, which is not always clear to sites. So, having eReg is its own thing, and I think it's important for sites to do that. But being able to do so with, a product or with a company that's already sort of so involved in the space on the back end, it just makes more sense. But again, you've got the ability to make everyone's lives easier. So very cool. Before we dive in, I do want to caveat this that, we're not going to go into every bell and whistle of the SiteVault here. So anyone in the audience, I'd love to hear from you guys as we're going through some of these things, because we may, bring them back on to sort of dive deeper into some of the more complex things, just simply for the sake of time and simplicity. It should be a fairly high overview. Would you say? Is that fair?
Yeah, very fair. It's not going to be like the super fancy show and tell, but like the foundations of what you would want to do in a system like SiteVault.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and add to stream here. You guys bear with me as I click through and try to keep everything looking nice and clean here. So let me remove the background. Beautiful. Yes. So I'll let you take the helm from here.
Okay, great. So I want to start by saying everything that we're going to show is live in the product. So none of this stuff is something that we're working on, or it's like a concept. It's live in the product. And we're going to try and just, again, give everybody a great foundation of like really important things you can do, reasons why you'd want technology like SiteVault. And then we're going to talk through, Brad, how you would use this in Hightower Clinical, like in your site, the benefits of all of that. So right here, perfect place to start. When you log into SiteVault, you're going to see your tasks. And this is a place across your studies where you've got actionable things happening. And the nice thing is that these actions are not something you're having to like manually create. The system just knows different stages and things that need attention. You can see here, there's like a source document that needs a comment. There may be a new version of something like a CV, something for training and evidence. So I know what we hear sometimes is when I'm in paper or like in a share drive, I can't really prioritize. So I wanted to ask you, Brad, like as you're seeing this, I know it's simple. We've got some tasks up there. Is that something that you have, are working through still there at your site, figuring out how to identify out of all your studies now? Because you've got how many studies at Hightower Clinical?
Oh man, I mean, I think we've got probably 60 active studies, so we've
Yeah.
been sort
Okay.
of slowly, building everything
That's a
to
lot.
Veeva.
That's a
It's
lot.
a
And
lot.
and when you're trying to, so talk to me today about like, do you find that it's easy to figure out who's doing what and what needs attention, especially if someone's out of the office?
Yeah.
How are
No, I
you doing
mean,
that across your studies right now?
yeah, I know, of course not. It's very challenging, and really,
Mhm.
I mean, what you're looking at on a sort of, in my mind, a landing page like this is, you've got sort of like the digital sticky notes that might be sticking out
Yeah.
of all your reg binders,
Yeah.
right? So,
Mhm.
it's one thing, especially as sites really evolve and become less about one physical location, which,
Right.
we've been modeled that way from the beginning. I can't necessarily be at 8 sites that we're, working with and looking in every reg binder every
Mhm.
single day. So, uh, again, this gives you a snapshot into what's outstanding. I mean, in a very simple
Yeah.
place, and I don't have to be there. I don't have to be
Yeah.
anywhere in particular to be able to do
Yeah.
that.
We hear that from coordinators a lot. For example, like I don't know how to prioritize my work, and it's such an interesting problem. And maybe it seems like a simple problem, but this is so complex when you think about the life of a site like yours, where your work is embedded in all of these different systems that your sponsors own. And those systems are, not something where you can pull into a view across all your documents and say, what needs my attention and how do I prioritize? So this is sort of the first view you get here in the system that hopefully helps with a lot of those challenges. So we're going to kind of go and anchor into now the place where the study specific regulatory documents all happen. This is our e-binder. And something that we've talked about in the past a little bit, Brad, that I want to get your more current thinking on is this structure is standard. It is created for you when you create a study in the system. That means that you can see here, you see document counts within these different folders and subfolders, but this is an auto-generated reference for you across your studies. And we did this intentionally. And not every site, I think when we first started showing this to sites, necessarily loved it out of the gate. A lot of them said, well, this doesn't really align with the way that I like to do things. But what we found now, especially since having this reference model out now for over a couple of years, is that it really has helped with efficiency. And I think in our industry, something that we struggle with, and I struggled with, is this idea of really wanting to put preferences into the very important work that you do. And here we've really taken this stance of variation is the enemy of quality. I say that a lot. When you're working to do the same thing in a lot of different ways, it can be really hard to do it well. So with this being auto-generated in the system here and looking the same for every study, I wanted to get your feedback on how are you processing that, Brad, at your site as you guys are using SiteVault, and then just in general, thinking about more standards coming into the technology that sites use.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's been a sort of evolving philosophy, I guess, for me, because
Mm-hmm.
there was a time, and I've used other e-reg systems in the past, and even beyond e-reg, just reg period. I mean, how many times do you have a document that you don't really know where to file it, right? Like, where does this
Mm-hmm.
fit inside a reg binder? And unfortunately, you may end up generating 15 new tabs that you've never had
Mm-hmm.
before, and you may never have again. So that's can be problematic, obviously, as you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to stay standardized across your sites and across your studies. So I've come around on this, and I love the idea now that you've sort of got this is your template, and they're going to fit in there. And I love the idea too. What you guys have done is really given, I think, the best of both worlds here, because while you can, or while you have to sort of put it into the existing structure, you can still name that in the description. And that's searchable across the top. So, if you've got look, again, how often do we have wacky documents that are like, okay, this is so oddly specific to this trial? Well, as long as you note
Right.
that in the description, it can be searched for. So it doesn't even matter necessarily where you put it per se. It's easily identifiable at any given time, right? And so it kind of, to me, that does away with the issue of worrying about creating new names for new documents, because again, that just gets out of hand, right? So yeah, to your point, it's something I've struggled with in the past. I think some sites still do, to your point. I think it's we really like to do things our way, but ultimately I think this makes things more efficient and easier in the long run.
Well, good. I'm glad we have your thumbs up. And we also hear from sites that a kind of maybe a hidden benefit that you may not think about right away is that because this thing is standard, the way that monitors can be trained is by accessing everything that is offered in help, and by accessing live training from us at Veeva. I know training monitors on systems, at least for me, took up a lot of time. And especially when they turn over and things like that. So that's another benefit of the standardization, is knowing that, we can kind of do out of the box training for sites, and you can get back to doing the work that you need to, that pays your bills. Like seeing
That's a
your
fair
patients.
point. I mean, yeah, I've
Yeah,
never really
entering
thought
your
about it
data.
like that, though. We're all operating off the same playbook now, instead of
That's right.
having 50 different sites doing it 50 ways, which is just
Yeah.
bad. It's bad for everyone ultimately.
Yeah, good for CRAs. And we're going to show later the way that this can enable a site to then have this automatic connection with sponsors, because we've got all these standards baked in. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but this is really where the source of those connections are made, because the system knows everything that is in it, and exactly what it needs to do, and all the different workflows it can go on. So as this is our anchor here in the eBinder, we're going to just talk through some things that you can do straight from this page. So you can see from this follow letter here, you can route this document, tell it to do some things. You can make a new version of it. You just talked about sticky notes. We call sticky notes annotations in SiteVault and across our Veeva systems. So you can erase those if you've had some sort of internal note that you want to get rid of, or some sort of note with your monitor. You can scrub that clean right here from this eBinder page. And then different types of documents allow you to do different things that align with that document, like send them for an electronic signature, or make that the newest, most current version. So the idea is like not having to click around to then actually work on these documents. You're able to do that right here. So getting things into the system is also really easy. We're going to show you how you can put in something for a lab certification. And because, again, we know exactly what that file is, we know how to automate the name. So you pull it in and we know, oh, okay, great. That is a lab certification. And you can also decide that maybe it's a draft and someone needs to look at it and approve it, or maybe you want to just upload it. Bam, it's already done. It's current right upon the upload. And then we talked about, actions you can take on the document. You can certify it as a copy if this is something that came in as an email, or it was a scanned in piece of paper, and say, yep, this is an exact copy. It works for inspection. That description that you like, you can put in there as well. And then this single document, you can tie back to an organization. So you can say, this is with this lab. Every time I have a study with Russ Labs, just reuse this thing. I don't want to manage it again. I don't want to create a duplicate of this lab certification. So all of this information too, that you can either that we expect or that you can choose to put on it for reports and things, you're going to capture right here on the upload. And then you can just save this document and it's good to go. It's in there. And you're going to go right back to the anchor of the e-binder for that study.
Yeah, and I mean, I love the, I don't know if we touch on this at all, but just the, I guess, I don't know if it's subtlety is the right word, but being able to actually tie organizations across your studies, and not just organizations, but staff, and things like that. So,
Yeah.
how many times have I sent the same lab normals, CLIA, CAP, to the same CRO or same sponsor, and I've got to still file it in another binder, especially if I'm across different sites where I can't have a sort of like central binder. I've still got to go file all these things separately.
Yeah.
And now, as you add that organization to your study, it just carries across the things that are associated with it. So you're not constantly re-uploading or resending the same documents over and over again.
Yeah, that is something that is a real challenge. And so we want to show you what this is a good segue into. We wanted to talk about a CV because that, like a lab, is another document that you probably have many, many, many copies of. And here in the CV right now, we can send it for signature because who wants to have to wait outside, of an office or something for someone to come and wet sign something, or like you said, maybe you're just working remotely. With the e-signature here that's tied to this CV, for example, you're not having to do that. You're able to send it right to the PI or coordinator from this e-binder. And then we want to actually, you can see it's in signature right there. So Christina Yang is waiting to sign it. And this is what it's going to look like when she actually gets that document to sign. So you just mentioned, Brad, and kind of teed this up for the challenge of a document like a lab certification and a CV that works across studies. And right now, you're probably managing that in separate places, hopefully not in the studies that you've got SiteVault working for, but you see there's this automatic tie right here to all of the studies that Christina is working on. So when she signs that CV we just sent, all of those studies are going to get that most updated version automatically. You're not going to have to manually file them across the study. You also can see all of this information on the side that you can then report out on and find, and you can edit and change it if you want to. You see the site. So Christina is working at Hightower Research. As you start to take over the world and have all these different locations, if you choose to grow that big, you would put those additional locations here too, so that Christina's CV could file across locations or even departments if you're in a big hospital, which is nice. And so all of this information, it's more than just taking a new version of a document, which is kind of what you have to do on paper or in a shared drive. A lot of it is about the key information around that document that helps you work smarter that you see here.
Yeah, and even this has been something debated about whether or not you think CVs expire. Is maybe one question, but
right.
You've got the ability to set expiration dates. If you so choose, which again, if you're not doing a great job with something like OneDrive or whatever, you've got the ability to see what's expiring, when does it expire. It's all sort of right there for you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, so the other thing that's right here that we wanted to show you is differences in versions. CVs, I don't know if this happens to you, but maybe you ask a PI for an updated CV and they email you over a Word document and you're not even really sure what's changed in the CV. And without knowing that, you're like, do I need to update this PI CV in my other studies? Is this something significant? But SiteVault has this cool thing called version compare, where as soon as you pull in a new version of a document, you're going to automatically see the changes. So you can see here in red things that have been taken out. You can see here in purple things that have been added. And the whole goal is to try to get rid of the track change nightmare of versioning all your track changes and trying to figure out what in the world are differences across all of your document versions. That is just unnecessary work. So the system's going to be able to do what you see here for any version of any document that you pull into it, which is really nice. And that way, as you do something like go to sign this CV, if someone's updated it on your behalf, you know exactly what's changed. So I don't know if you had the track change nightmare going on there. I hope you don't, but this is something that would help alleviate that.
Well, and even then, I think it's interesting because, look, I hate to be the one to admit this, but, we end up with different versions of stuff that's not always clear. Okay, well, which one is the right one here? Someone went and got a signature and uploaded it. But which one do we need? But I love the ability to have that check. It is like getting some track changes without necessarily getting a full on, tracked change document. So
yeah,
very quickly, what can I see that's different? What did we leave out? It just gives you a lot more ability to see what the hell's going on at a quick glance.
Yeah, it's like track changes without having to do any work. And you also see kind of something that I didn't point out that I should have is you see this blue status up there now that says it's in approval. So this means that this document's not final yet. We are waiting on a signature. Remember, we did that before we opened the document. You see that in signature status, which is really nice. So monitors can't see it yet. Nobody can see this yet that's not internal to your site because it's not final. You want to make sure it's right before it's ready to be monitored. But this is just a nice way of showing documents do more than just sit in one single, status in something like a file on your desktop or on, a piece of paper in your binder. People are looking at them, people are signing them. Maybe you want to have a document reviewed before it gets submitted into the IRB. I don't know what kind of documents now. I know you're saying you're getting someone trained up right now that's working on some of your regulatory files. I'd imagine that some of that you're wanting to look at before she moves it into the IRB or puts it in front of your sponsor. So the system can help support all of those different workflows, which is really, really nice. And you see that at the top there.
Yeah. No, I love that. And yeah, I mean, to your point, it is, especially in the beginning where you're really just bringing all your documents together, making sure what's good, what needs, but a lot of it you want to have it checked out before you shoot it through and gets live in front of the monitor so that you don't look like an idiot, which I've never looked like an idiot before. But those things happen.
You don't want to collect a bunch of sticky notes if you don't have to.
Can I take this question? Like, does that work on things beyond CVs? If you have two protocol versions, is it going to go ahead and?
Good question.
Thank you for the question, Nicole.
Yeah, it does. That works on any document that we have, which is nice. And we really try to bring that consistency across. Like the documents do have different workflows they can go on depending on what they are. Maybe not everything needs a signature. But yes, you can use a lot of the functionality that we're showing across all the documents in the system, which is really nice. Great question. Okay, well, let's talk about monitors because the huge benefit of this, kind of going back and seeing the eBinder here, this is going to be something great for monitoring as well. We know that monitoring is a lot of work on sites, and we want to make sure that that process is really easy. So something that you can easily do here in the system is support what we call e-monitoring. So it doesn't matter if the monitor is remote, doesn't matter if the monitor is going to be sitting next to you or maybe down the hall or in another building that's tied to your site. They can get access here into the system directly. That's exactly what we want. We certainly don't want you having to put the stuff on thumb drives or print it for them. And you can schedule their access. So that's what you're seeing here, like based on what works for you at your site. I want to know how you support monitoring right now, but we're going to go ahead and schedule this access to start today. Sad that the monitors, they're on Valentine's Day, but give them access for a week. And we like to say this is like set it and forget it. So whenever they need to have that access, you just set it up right here, and then they see just what they need to see for that study. So how do you do that today, Brad, when monitors come in? Like, what does that look like in order to get everything prepped and prepared and ready for them to review?
I mean, pre-Veeva?
Yeah, pre-Veeva.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes it's a race, right? So we're
Mm-hmm.
making sure, going through everything, make sure it's clean. I think it becomes especially challenging depending on what your site structure is, because if you've got a standalone regulatory person who, maybe hasn't been or missed out on, I don't know, a training log, something that needs to be filed, right? That's where it gets really challenging. So again,
Mm-hmm.
being able to have everything in one home where, both coordinator and regulatory coordinator can collaborate in one place, not like through some via email, some in OneDrive, some face
Right.
to face.
Right.
You've kind of got it all right there. So it certainly makes that, I mean, just much easier and more accurate. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things, not the end of the world. They can be filed if you're missing something, but some things you just simply can't, you can't afford to not have and have filed. So again, this does away with that. I do want to ask too. So from what can a monitor see and what can't they see?
Mm-hmm.
Are there things that, the CRAs are not going to have access to and
Yeah,
actually?
that's a great question. So they can't see things like budgets and contracts, things that we know are types of documents. Again, you don't have to think about that because we know exactly what documents what in the system. So they're never going to see that. They also can't see things that aren't final. We show that CV was being sent for signature. So that particular newest version, they're not going to see because we don't want them questioning things that might be on there until you know that document is totally final and ready to go, and that person has signed off on their own CV and given a new expiration date potentially. Maybe that happened because the document's expired, so we don't want them looking at it just yet. And then there's also things that we have in the system like they cannot see certain dashboards and reports. They cannot do things like download a source document out of the system. We don't want them to be able to do that. So there's even some things kind of baked in that are even more around not just types of documents they can or can't see, but kind of activities they should and shouldn't be able to do. Good question. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of things they can see, we can take more questions. Certainly, that's super helpful. But these are dashboards that we have, and kind of getting back to your point, Brad, of like, what getting everything prepped for a monitor. We don't just want to stop at giving them access, and then we also said like the technology company, huge benefit if they can also train your monitors as well. But we really want it to be self-service. And that's what you're seeing here is this dashboard. The whole goal of this thing, and I'll kind of talk through the different components of it, is that you can continue seeing patients, working on other studies, and doing what you need to do to keep your lights on, to keep your patients, active in their treatments. And the monitor is really able to be self-sufficient sitting there with the system. So you see the very first thing here is something that's waiting on a site response. So they could send a document to you on a workflow with questions that are asked, and they can see that you haven't been able to respond to those questions yet. They also can see there's 13 new things that are available for them to look at. And the key is that they haven't already looked at in the system for that study, which is really nice. So like we are tracking what's already been finalized by them or a previous monitor on the study, and we are just going to serve up right here what is available for them to review. And all of these pieces of the dashboard are clickable. So like if you click the 13, you're going to actually see the documents. And that also makes it really nice. So when you see the 13 documents, then you can go and see, okay, which one's the highest priority out of all of these documents here as a monitor that I want to look at first. You also
Yeah.
see the pass rate. So I'll pause, Brad. Go ahead. You want to chime
No, I
in?
just again, this is, and I mean, we haven't gotten that deep yet into the,
Mm-hmm.
sharing with the monitors, but I mean, this is just a repository for files to live, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah.
able to actually have to actually, you can actually communicate and see. And look, I didn't even pick up on this until now, but the ability to know what the monitor is reviewed, assuming that they're using the system correctly, because I mean, we deal with a lot of remonitoring or
Oh, tell me about it.
things like that. So to have the
Mm-hmm.
ability to be like, just to know, like, oh, this has been looked at. We know it's good. We at least have some level of confidence. Maybe someone's not going to go back and look through, every little crazy thing over again is already a huge leg up versus,
Yeah.
the paper binders, which
Transparency.
can be flipped through sort of ad nauseum, and they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, I feel like you are onto something when you say, like, this is not just a shared drive. And I think people sometimes have this concept of, I don't really need any regulatory system because I have an electronic shared drive. But this is not an electronic shared drive. This is really about thinking about the way the work gets done and how to help make sites more efficient, get time back, stop all the duplication that's happening in the way that a site has to work. Not just in entering data over and over again, the same data, but also having 50 copies of that same CV, all with different expiration dates. So you feel like you're just constantly asking that person to re-sign a CV or trying to recollect if the monitor before your current monitor did or did not look at something. It doesn't have to be that way. But you really do need a purpose-built system to help with all of those baked in efficiencies. I want to point out this whole pass rate thing is kind of interesting too. This shows you how often when a document has been monitored by your monitor, it passes review the first time and they don't kick it back to you with questions, because this is kind of a little bit about internal efficiency. Like, are you putting in documents that are not aligned with what you put in the EDC? Are you putting in documents that are expired or that are missing or for whatever reason incorrect? You can kind of get an understanding too of like how much of that back and forth is happening, not only there like overall for all your documents, but if you scroll down in the dashboard, you can even see like work happening over the months. We just have February right now, but as you use the system over time, you actually get a part of this graphic here will be every single month how much monitoring activity is happening of regulatory documents. And then if you put source documents in the system, you'll see that too, which is pretty great because that is like a hidden, or I want to get your feedback on this. Like, I think that is where there's so much mystery of doing work at a site, around work that goes into monitoring, just the effort of coordinators working across all these different studies at one time. And the studies ebb and flow, being able to just use this system to track all your documents, you're going to understand all the work that's going on around those documents, and it's going to be kind of just automatically surfaced for you. Do you feel like that's something you ever are thinking about right now? Like how much monitoring activity is happening and how much is that costing your business?
Of course. And, we have these conversations, more commonly than I would like to, in terms of,
Yeah.
Charging for monitoring fees, or again, something like monitoring change fees where you do become, get remonitored through all the stuff. So being able to have some metrics behind that to be like, hey, we know in our regulatory side, or even beyond that, how much time is going into these things. We can a lot more easily justify our requests or asks from, sponsors in terms of, again, like, hey man, it's taking a lot of time, let's
Yeah.
find a way to make it financially reasonable for us, so we're not, doing a lot of unpaid work. So yeah, I mean, just to have that ability alone is a pretty big, and something that, probably undervalued up until now.
Yeah. We, the other thing that I didn't point out here that kind of ties back to the CV we were working on, you also can see things that at your site you need to push through and finalize that are not yet ready for review. So I think this dashboard kind of shows like there are so many steps all these documents go through, and there's so much routing back and forth once they do start to become monitored, and it's really hard to track all of that. So everything that you're seeing here in this dashboard is just automatically populating as you do the work on the documents, which is really nice. So this is just one of our dashboards. We have a lot, in the free product you can build and share them too, but just kind of gives you a little bit of a flavor of how you can track the work around all the document management and a purpose-built regulatory system.
Well, I mean, you could potentially even have some. I mean, if I'm reading the whole idea of pass rate, right? I mean, you get some kind of sort of quality metrics in a way too. Like
Absolutely.
where are we screwing up, or where are we seeing trends maybe where we're making some mistakes and things aren't being issues are being found. Again, it's sort of a more easy and centralized way to identify those issues. So again, that's
Yeah.
probably something we haven't been able to do as good of a job in because everything is over here, over here, over here, over here.
Right.
And now
Right.
we've got a place where we can more centrally identify those.
Right. Are you going to go and pick up? I'm sure this has never happened there, but like, are you going to go and, pick up a binder off of somebody's desk or dig into one of their drives on their computer and then find that things are not necessarily in the working order that you expected them to be in, or just understand where your bottlenecks are? Because so much, I think, of the challenge is we don't have the right information to really make sure we're being as efficient as you can be as a site. And without being able to get insight into things like this, you really can't take your site to the next level to try to become more efficient. So this is a really important concept to us. And all of that information you saw around the CV when we opened it up, and I kind of said, all this is for reporting, all of that stuff can be pulled into a dashboard like you see here. So you can really start tracking your own efficiencies. You can start tracking your monitors, how quickly they're looking at this information. So this has been a huge benefit that we've heard. So I'm excited to get your feedback on this when you get monitors in the system, and
Yeah,
hopefully it's easy to get them trained. Maybe they've even already accessed SiteVault, and so they know how to just get in there and get going, and it becomes much more self-service for the monitor versus you having to set aside dedicated time to get them set up, get them access, train them on the way that you're using your documents, sit down with them, go through the sticky notes, answer questions. That takes a lot of time and attention away from other things that you have going on. And we really want to speed that whole working with your monitor thing up here.
well, that's a complaint I've had about other solutions out there is that, like having a platform is one thing and that's great, but you really, at sites especially, you need process, right? Like
Yeah.
it all comes down to process, I think. And so to have it baked in and baked in an intuitive way is, again, it's really, makes all the difference in the world because, otherwise it'd be, yeah, you could use SharePoint or OneDrive or Dropbox or whatever, and it wouldn't be a problem, but it's just not, just doesn't have that level of sophistication that you have here. And, to the other point about, like sponsors are judging us sites based off of, our mistakes. So again, we should have the access to be able to see and fix them by having, being able to run reports like this, which again, it can be very challenging if you don't have, especially you don't have a big quality team. If you're not a big academic center with a quality team looking through everything, this really does make that, enables you to do that much, much simpler, I think.
Well, without this, it is more of like, well, this is what the coordinator said. Well, this is what the monitor before you said. Well, this is, and that's something that we have talked a lot about is that with better process through technology in place, I think the relationships can be better. There's so much transactional. I mean, the nature of how I think sites work with monitors and sponsors, it's so transactional. And it's deadlines and it's, I need this, but I gave it to you, but I gave it to the other person. And it just, there's no way around the frustrations that creates for everybody. And you're really good, like pointing out a lot of the frustrations that are, I think many of them fixable things. Like these are fixable problems in our industry. And I think technology really can play a better role in stopping all of the transactional nature of the way that we interact with one another so that we can build better relationships and talk about the real things that we want to be talking about. How do we work together? How do you get the resources that you need at your site to recruit better patients, for the study? How does your sponsor need to pay for certain tools and things that you need to have in place to be able to run your own business and get your studies started up faster? Like these are the conversations I think we honestly all want to be having, but without fixing all of these transactional, needs that we have first, I think it's hard to do. So
Yeah, it's
we're
true.
hoping to play a role in that.
Yeah, even just from a, boots on the ground coordinator perspective, there's nothing more, time consuming and, frustrating than your monitors on site. They scan a bunch of documents. A week passes. Some person you've never heard of before requests the same documents that your monitor was just there scanning.
Right.
And they want you, oh, can you send me those, 15 documents? You're like, no, what, why? Someone was just here scanning them. What are we doing here? No, I got to take some time out. I got to go find them. I got to take them out of the binder. I got to scan them. I got to save them. I got to name them. I got to refile them. And that, it doesn't sound like very much, but that stuff adds up, crazily throughout the day as, you have more and more studies and more requests of just to be able to say, look, here's the portal, man. It's here. It lives here, and you can go there and grab it. I just love that.
Good. Okay, well, this is a really good segue into then this big like context shift that we can take that I kind of teased about a little bit in the beginning of we do really want to focus on helping you with exchange and working better with sponsors. So we do that through Study Connect. So if you notice, we just clicked this toggle where we completely like put on a different hat, still SiteVault, still the same system, right? But now we are in this area called Study Connect. So we felt pretty strongly, Brad, that we can do more to help sites like yours than just give you a great place to manage all your documents, get insights around all of that. But going back to what you said earlier, we've got a lot of sponsors and CROs on our platform, and we have this really great opportunity that we're tapping into now through Study Connect, what you're seeing here, to help them work better with you and help you work better with them. So what you're seeing is pretty simple. It's an outline of 3 studies that we call connected studies. So these connected studies mean that your SiteVault e-regulatory is actually connected over into a sponsor's system. And Veeva has done the connection. So it just gets turned on, and you have the opportunity to make sure you accept that. You don't have to work on a connected study. You can use this e-regulatory for any study. It doesn't have anything to do with it being connected to a Veeva sponsor or even working with a Veeva sponsor. You could use our e-regulatory system like just for NIH studies. Doesn't matter, whatever you want. But why not give you extra value if you're also working with a sponsor or CRO that happens to be a Veeva customer too? What we can do here is kind of help, again, this taskiness of all the back and forth. We can help eliminate some of that, make it more clear through Study Connect. And then the last thing I'll say before getting your feedback and like we kind of dig into this is we took the approach of, in listening to sites say like all these portals, all these logins, even when I log into the same system, it looks different for different studies. It looks different for different sponsors. Like I'm never going to be able to operate efficiently. Again, all the variation of the ways I work with my sponsors. So we like to talk about this kind of like Amazon. I'm a huge Amazon user, being a working mom. So I think at least most people have probably experienced Amazon, where it's the whole goal for the user experience in something like Amazon is like, you don't know that you're connected to thousands of different vendors on the back end. You don't need to know that. You just need to do what you want to do, and you want it to be seamless, and you want to understand how to get what you need and do it efficiently and do it in a standard way over and over again. So we've taken that approach with Study Connect, that as these things get turned on and connected, they're going to be the same, and it's going to be a very repetitive process for you to work on a connected study, even so much that we're really trying to challenge, like, we don't even want to make training around this. Like, it should be consumer grade, so easy to use that it's easy to follow the connections and the things that are happening back and forth with you and a Veeva sponsor. Questions about this before I kind of show you, like, we're going to get into what is this, what can you do, but it is a pretty big context shift here.
Oh, I see. Plow ahead.
Okay. Okay. So you see that there's 3 studies here that you're connected to in SiteVault. So you didn't have to log in again. You didn't have to do anything to integrate or make your e-regulatory technology connect right here. And we're gonna dig into where you see there's an orange action needed. So the orange is going to be consistent here, and you're going to see where there's this orange bubble. There's something that you need to do. And there are different ways today that your sponsor can connect with you. We know there's a lot of ways that you work on sponsor-owned tech. So we're thinking about all those ways at Veeva. And today we have a big focus on document exchange. That one obviously makes sense because we have an e-regulatory system, but you also can do things like safety distribution and really quickly get safety letters from sponsors and file them and do what you need to do on your end there, as well as e-consent. If a sponsor turns on a connected e-consent for you, you can use e-consent for that study, as well as electronic patient reported outcomes. So there are other things that sponsors can turn on. And we're going to really focus on document exchange because it ties really well in with the e-regulatory stuff that we've shown. So here again, going back to easy repetition across sponsors, these are actions. There's an action that needs to be taken for this 027 study, and there are standard actions here where they are requesting a document from you. You see those as the top 3. They also could be sending you something that you need to actually update first and then return it, which is what you see down there as the blue other 2 actions. And then you also can see the little airplane at the bottom where you can just send stuff off to the sponsor. So we want this to be super simple. You see that we've already outlined for you the document types because again, we've got those baked in document types when these actions are due, and sponsors can even communicate with you here. So the idea is no more email, keep it really simple. This is your active document task list for the sponsor.
Yeah, and that alone is I think a big deal. I mean, you know how many times I've been digging through emails, figure out like what's outstanding, what have I sent, what maybe someone else on my team sent something, but I need to send something. So being able to just have again a place where you can go seems like a no-brainer.
Okay, good. So let's just open it up and show you. Okay, let's send something. So we know here they want an IRB response, and there's 2 options. The first one is it's not already in SiteVault, or even you're using a shared drive still, or you need to scan that IRB document in, or you're using a competitor's eReg. Okay, we still have this goal. At the beginning you said, what is SiteVault? It also can just help you work better with your sponsor CRO, even if you do not want to use it as your e-regulatory platform. We still feel like there's help for the industry we can provide there. So if that's the case and you are using a different e-regulatory software, you can take that IRB document out and just drag it right in, and it's going to send off. But if you're using e-regulatory in SiteVault, we are going to actually populate the document for you. So for all of these requests that the sponsor gives you, they are actually tagging, hey, this is the document type I want from the site. When that request comes over, we grab that document for that study, the most current version, and we make sure it's final, and it just pops up right here. No searching. And then you can provide a comment back if you wish to do that. Again, we do not want you working in email. And you just send it right back. And when you send it, it maps in and it files over into their regulatory system, their trial master file, exactly where it needs to go. So the idea here is that there's this mapped exchange happening. It's in your system, it's classified right, it goes into their system, classified right. Do they need to keep monitoring your system now? Like, we have a mapped exchange, and that's something that is exciting. And I think that we're on the cusp of is thinking about, do you still now need to do that those steps of them going into your technology. Does it match my technology? Well, if you're using our e-regulatory and they're on our regulatory product, it's a mapped exchange. It matches. It matches. You don't need to go back and re-review in the site system. So we're trying to take that burden away as well. Questions about this before I show you one last quick thing here about Study Connect?
No, I mean, I think that makes perfect sense, and it's something that I hope to see more uptake with, I guess, because again, I love the concept of just having one place to go to figure out where things are. Again, that seems so like a simple concept, but we really haven't seen it used as widely as I would like to see. So again, no, I think it makes perfect sense.
Good. And then the last thing is you can see in this Documents tab, you kind of talked about this a little bit, Brad, like part of the struggle is there's a lot of people that work across these documents on the sponsor side and on the site side. So sometimes you re-request things, sometimes coordinators leave, or you get an FDA audit when the study's been going on for years, or an IRB comes and audits you. And it's really, really hard to show all of the exchange that has happened across that study. And that is what you're seeing here. You're seeing really a history of all of the documents that have been sent and received. We store those numbers, as you can see here. You can filter by a lot of these things, and this is where you get that comprehensive history. You can see exactly what was sent. You can search things. You can see what was received from the sponsor. So this really should also take the guesswork out of, especially if you've got multiple people working on regulatory there for a study, and even on the sponsor side too. It's a much better way to work together versus something like email.
Well, and think about turnover, right? So
yes. Yeah.
A lot of times if I have a coordinator leave, I mean, all of this stuff may be unknown to me, right? But if it's there, it's there. We're going to be able to easily pick up, figure out what's been sent. Look, I mean, it's getting to a point now where IRB portals don't hold like the newest versions of protocols anymore. They'll reference it, in their approval letters, but you have to dig through a series of emails to find the most recent version of a protocol. I know that's maybe doesn't seem like a lot, but if you're getting
it's a lot,
600 emails a day, or maybe that's a slight over exaggeration, but not by much, I feel like sometimes. And they come from random people on the study team that you only hear from once every 6 months, and you don't know the name. So again, all those little things add up, crazily over time. So just to have that there in one place is, I think a bigger impact than maybe what people who don't work at a site can imagine.
Yeah, I'm not going to name the CRO, but I know we went back to negotiate more startup money in my previous history, because by the time we got our contract executed, we talked to 24 different contacts at that CRO. And I know you're not surprised by that. So the amount of just duplication across communication and confusion that created for us, and just really just money just burned, it just didn't make sense. And you're right, email is not this context of like, hey, I need to figure out what is due for this study. I need to understand the categories of what's due or what's needed for me. And sites just really struggle, I think, to be able to prioritize that and really think clearly, study by study, sponsor by sponsor, of what is truly needed at that time. And we're really trying to tackle that here with Study Connect.
Yeah, again, it's seems simple, elegant, dare I say. So there's some other kind of great. Do you have more, or are you kind of?
No, this is sort of the bulk, and we're following some of the chatter on the comments. I don't see that. Thank you guys for getting involved, and I see some of these things are getting answered, and support for some of these things. So Kathy, nice to see you. A lot of these names I know. That's great. And we really wanted to like deep dive from here. If people don't understand the core of what a regulatory system is, or even this unique thing that we're doing through Study Connect, then we felt like we wouldn't have a great jumping off point to do deeper dives. But we would love to do deeper dives based on the desire and the need. But we didn't want to try to throw too much into the first day.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfectly fair. You can really go down a lot of rabbit holes here. And
Yeah.
well, let's hit a few of these questions if you're good with it. And I
Sure.
might actually just pull the stream off if you're good.
Great.
That way we don't have to fight with
Yeah, let's do it.
that. And sorry guys, I'm still gotta make it fancy. Have a nice little overlay there.
So fancy.
Let me get back to the comments. So let's see, management of SAEs, AEs. Is that done at all through the system? And if so, sort of how does it?
You can do it through tracking documents. But I would also say, Carol, that we feel like a lot of that is more like CTMS functionality. And so we don't have that at a stage where we feel great about it yet. As we build out more and more in the system, we want to do that right and really be able to sync it not just to a document or to a patient, which you can do today, but actually sync it to a visit, maybe a potential procedure. And so more to come there. That's also kind of a great segue into something I learned at Veeva when I first came, was that we didn't really want to just solve problems as quickly as possible because a lot of these problems are complicated. We wanted to solve them the right way, and not just Band-Aid them. And I think that once we have more in our product around patients and visits and procedures, it'll make sense to really more thoroughly tackle SAEs and AEs. Good question.
Yeah, and it looks like, you guys do have some, like I said, you mentioned maybe some places for source, and I think there's certainly a potential there. But I mean, I love the concept too of like, you don't have to take over the whole world at once. I mean, start addressing the issues in a way that makes sense. And I mean, I like that approach. I know Clara, you're down there answering some questions in the comments. I do appreciate that. I still want to throw some up. Question from Nicole about sort of communication, I guess, through the SiteVault. What does that look like? Can you sort of reach out and blast multiple people at a time?
Yes.
What's that? How's that work?
Yes, you absolutely can. So SiteVault, from the actual documents themselves, you can do annotations, which that's a Veeva term, but it's really just like a comment. You highlight a part of the document, you put a comment in there, you @sign people that need that information, and then they get emails. And in that email, they get a link to go back and land right on that document. The other thing that you can do is we have the capability where you can actually send them a link from the document to go there. And you can do things that are more based on different groups of people that operate in different roles across different studies or sites. So yes, we have thought about that. And there's lots of ways that you can communicate in the system and tie that back to email.
Nice. And then Alfredo got a question here close to my heart. If you're a SMO or if you're managing all these different locations, sort of what does that look like? Do you need separate accounts, or how does that break out within SiteVault?
Okay, Alfredo, fellow nurse. So we're gonna hopefully get along. You absolutely do. You can absolutely use our system, and you can use our free product to manage your multiple locations, and then to get a roll up across those locations, to get access across those locations of your site management organization. That was something that was really important to us. We know our industry, there's a lot of site networks out there now, and acquisitions are happening pretty often. I think mostly that's a great thing. So, we want to be able to support that in the product. And something that we've heard good feedback on is because of the standards that are sort of baked in, it becomes pretty easy for you then to look across all your locations, have consistency. Maybe even you acquire a site that's on SiteVault, they're working on our same reference model, and it really just becomes easier to work across locations.
Yeah, that's true. And again, something I've waffled with in the past, but I'm starting to sort of lean into the idea of like, look, everyone doesn't need to reinvent the wheel here. It's okay. As long as we can, find something we all at least vaguely agree with, I think that's, perfectly okay. I want to hit a couple more questions. I know we're getting along on time here. Any other site offerings aside from Vault? And I know there's parts of Vault we didn't even really get to dive into. So maybe even sort of calling out what those might be, but what else is sort of baked in?
Yeah, so great question. So in SiteVault, we do also offer things like, we didn't go through, like there's a lot of remote monitoring workflows. You also can add on things like e-consent. You can do digital delegation. You can track patient status. We do also have lots of sites as users into other systems that are owned by sponsors. And we're thinking about that more and more, and how to pull more of that into Study Connect that you saw, to give our sites more like one place to really come and work across Veeva sponsors, because we have an RTSM, we have an EDC, we've got, we now have study training. We've got other technologies that as a site you may be logging into and using. And so we are really thinking holistically about the site experience, not just even site owned technology, but also how we can improve the way that you access and use sponsor technology that we make as well.
Yeah, and I hope we continue to see that evolve. I mean, I feel like maybe it's a slow crawl across all these different issues, but there's still also a lot of unsolved problems, right? I mean, let's be honest. Like even I use CTMS, I love it, but there's still a lot of improvements and room to run in terms of that stuff. I don't know what your guys' roadmap is or any of that. I'm not speaking to that, but I love the approach, and I love the idea here. Let's hit maybe you got time? Another question or two?
Let's do it.
What about text app notifications, anything beyond email at this point? I know that there is an app, and I have used it, which I've actually found really helpful because I needed to track down a protocol in real time on my app, and running around without my computer. I thought that was super helpful. But anything else built into that at the moment?
There is, yeah, and we're thinking about that more. So something that we uniquely have in our product on Vault, SiteVault, is this need to have lots of different site locations. So we were just talking about how it works for an SMO, and it gets a little more complicated in the app because a lot of our other customers don't have all of these layers of complexity in our business. So we're working through that a little bit and really thinking about things that need to be done on an app, things that need to be signed, things that more frequently need to be accessed. So Brad, I'm glad you're having a good experience today, and just know that more and more is coming there. And then I'll also say to that too, one thing that I shouldn't leave out is we do have a My Veeva for Patients app. And that is a whole nother deep dive we could do. The site works in SiteVault, the patient works in MyVeeva. You can think about it, if you're familiar with medical record systems, like there is a patient portal that is a very specific, more slimmed down consumer type experience for patients, and a patient portal. MyVeeva for Patients is like a portal off of SiteVault. So you don't actually access it as a site user, but it's synced with everything that you're doing in SiteVault. And so that's another place where we have more from an app perspective that's available today, and a lot of great push notifications and things like that for patients to try to help make their lives easier. And then when it makes sense, either more electronic or virtual when they're working with their study teams.
Very good. I'm going to maybe hit one more question here, if you're okay with it. And maybe it's something even I can answer is, what kind of resources do you guys have for sites who are looking to jump in and get involved? I mean, I know you guys have things like even the reference models, like what are available, maybe some SOP support and things like that, because, it's not just a matter of like necessarily throwing files into a platform. Again, there's process, and there's, some more considerations to think about as a site. So what other sorts of resources do you guys have there for interested
We
sites?
have a lot of resources. So if you go to sites.veeva.com, you're going to see that just like in this demo that we just did live, we have not hidden our product from you. You can see all kinds of quick videos on our features, what we offer. There's a whole section there on how to get started. Even better than that, after you sign up for the free product, you're going to get these emails that really kind of hug your experience and know what you might want to be doing first and how you might want to be setting up the system, giving you links to some of your most important videos. You can sign up for live training with us. You can sign up for group training. And then we also have a team of site success managers. Some of them are commenting here that have research background that are here to help you all along the way. So you got live training, you've got people, you can pick up the phone, you can email us, go through all of our resources and videos that we have online. And really a great way to get started too is just signing up so that we know that you're on the radar now and we can help walk you through that whole process. All of that is free. You're not going to pay for any support from Veeva to get up and get started.
Yeah, awesome. And again, we've implemented and used the SOP support templates that are there. And again, it took me a little bit to find those that reference model, but again, it really helped us sort of contextualize sort of what we talked about in terms of standardizing some of the documents and things like that. So I mean, it's really the whole package is there for you as a site. Then again, I can really obviously appreciate that if you're kind of coming in cold without really knowing how to make the plunge, because it can be intimidating. It can be a lot to take on at once. And then again, not just how do I get my files in there? It's like, how do we, really operationalize this and make process, have SOPs, and use it consistently. So no, I love it. We went over our hour. Anything else you want to address? Any other questions you see? I mean, otherwise, I love and I appreciate again you guys doing this, because it's certainly a lot of ways it can go sideways, but I feel like it's such a lack of transparency with a lot of the solutions that are out there. You can't even see what it looks like before you try it. And sometimes if you get too deep in a E-reg, it's a pain to start, but it's even more of a pain to shift gears halfway through and have to bail out and do something different. So
Sure.
I just appreciate the, I guess, bravery, let's say, it takes for you guys to come on and, talk about these things on a live stream.
Thanks, Brad. Well, I feel like everyone was very thoughtful. So thank you to everyone for not, I didn't feel too stumped today, hopefully. But I think maybe my last parting thing, Brad, is whatever might be holding you back from just trying this, knowing that it's free and compliant, we want to have that conversation with you. Like, we are really trying to take down any hurdle. Like you said, there's a massive business process change here. What about SOPs? What about somebody to talk to? Like driving somebody on our team, the head of our product was like, it's like driving for the first time, you can do it, but it feels good to have somebody like sitting next to you. Like, we have a team of people that are here. We are real people behind this product. A lot of us have worked at sites and done this work, and we know that we can be better, than the status quo today. And so I just want to leave you with whatever you feel like is holding you back. Talk to us, reach out. We want to get you over that hurdle, and we want to make you successful.
No, awesome. And, as someone who's, runs sites, I would encourage you to, if you're considering it, pull the Band-Aid off. And again, reach out to, Bree and the team at Veeva if you're having questions or problems. But ultimately, you're going to be better served in the end. I consider myself very tech savvy and forward thinking, but I've always been a little hesitant, and I'm really happy that, we decided to just do the damn thing and get it going, and it'll really change things for you. So guys, thanks. Make sure that you, subscribe, leave a review, or don't. I'm not the boss of you, but I appreciate you guys listening. And Bree, thanks again so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.